Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about hacking and security related stuff, which is just generally what I do. But today we're going to focus on the different steps, methods, and actually doing hacking or security work, depending on what you're doing. But there are things you have to know. Like the first thing that you do when you want to get into something, or if you're testing something, is what? What do? We look. So how do we do that? Well, we have tools such as Nmap and different scanning tools that we use to scan the network, the router, to see what ports are open, what programs are running, what operating system they're running on. All these things help us later on down the road. The more information we can gather about a target, the better off we can understand it later on, so that we can figure out how to exploit it, figure out what security problems it has, such and such, therefore, etc., etc. But basically, the first step is reconnaissance, which basically is just scanning, looking for open ports, trying to see what operating system, what programs they're running, try to get some specific versions here, and then we go to the next step of actually experimenting. Now, once we know the information and what they're running, their operating system, and all of that, we can figure out what we want to target, what port we want to target, what program we want to target, how we want to get into the system. Now it comes to the part of actually exploiting, finding a vulnerability. Okay, first we scan to find what they were running, identify operating system, programs, ports, that sort of thing. Next, we actually have to find a vulnerability. Okay, but in order to do this, we actually have to go and download the programs, use the same exact versions, because different versions have different abilities. We all know this. Well, people that are in the computer industry know this. But the point is that you've got to find a vulnerability. Next, you actually have, after finding the vulnerability, you actually have to get an exploit that works. Now, most of the time when we're talking about exploits, we're talking about like operating system. We want root privileges or admin privileges. So we got one, need to exploit a program that is running an administrative privileges on the machine, and two, not all vulnerabilities have the ability to become root, to give you root access. I mean, some vulnerabilities are you can't really get much out of. So you've got to do some research, and you've got to do a lot of work and just code. I mean, this comes down to just writing shell code. I mean, you've got to find the vulnerability, which is the second step. Exploiting is a little bit harder, because you actually have to figure out if that vulnerability can get you root privilege or not. And that takes a little bit of time, experimenting. I mean, it just takes time. The process of basically finding the vulnerability and then exploiting it is the most time consuming. And maybe looking, research, reconnaissance doesn't take a huge amount of time, unless you're just really wanting to be super specific and you just can't get a lot of information. Sometimes it takes a lot, but most of the time you're going to be spending most of your time in just finding a vulnerability and then just trying to exploit it, unless it's already one that's known and exists, and then it's going to be easy for you. But most of the time, 0-day exploits, that's the thing. Okay, that's pretty much about it. And then besides, after you get in, you've got to hide your traces and stuff like that. That's part of security. But if you, look at it from a point of view of, you're a hacker, you're trying to get in. You're a security person, you're trying to find the fault and fix the fault. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword here. You're either a hacker or a security expert. But either one, all you're doing the same thing. So to be honest with you, it's the same information. It's just how you use it that makes it good or bad. Because there really is no evil way to write a program. You can design it to do something bad, or you can design it to do something good. But the principle is the same. You're still using knowledge. So, hopefully you guys got a little bit better understanding of how you hack, how you get security, stuff like that. And I'm hoping that that actually helps you. Because, let's just go into a little bit of showing you the applications. Like, see, here's what I talked about, Nmap, this tool that you can use, and there's also a version for Windows you can use as well. And vulnerability, Metasploit, awesome for finding stuff. You're gonna need a debugger for doing stuff too. So Ollie Debug, Immunity Debugger. Those are the two ones that I use most. Mainly Immunity Debugger. Immunity Debugger. Then I use like Dev C++ for Windows when I want to create stuff. Python, of course, you want to do that. You're going to want to learn Python. And if you already know Python or Perl or whatever language you know, it automatically helps you. But when you debug a program, you're going to need all that. You're going to need to learn assembly, so you can understand this stuff a little better. And there's a lot more to it, but this is just a very basic video on how you can do it, just to get you started. There are more advanced stuff, much more advanced stuff, and people spend years of their lives learning some of this stuff. Reverse engineering and all that. I mean, there is a lot more out there than just what I'm saying. So I don't want anyone to sit there and say, hey, well, he didn't say that, or he didn't do this. No, that's not the case. This is just a video for extreme beginners and anybody who would be interested in doing this. And this is how it's done. But other than that, you're on your own. Maybe I'll do some videos later on to do more advanced cover on one specific subject. But until I get to that, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hope you guys have a nice day, and I hope you guys subscribe.